Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with the three-time world champion, the Zerg in the red, the finisher. It's Serral. Alongside his more notable teammate, the Terran in orange, we have uThermal. Facing off against the rank 1 Terran in the world in the blue, it's Clem. Alongside the best player from North America, the Protoss in teal, we have Trigger. In a best of 3 2 versus 2 showdown, as part of uThermal's $50,000 2v2 circuit. At least one of the qualifiers. And you might ask, is uThermal playing in his own tournament? And did he contract out the rank 1 player in the world to play alongside him? To which I say, you're on the wrong channel to ask these questions. But while you're here, it'd be awesome. Before we get started, you could smash that like button. Maybe even subscribe. Help me count the algorithm. And Jimmy, what do we have? Jimmy. 1,808 likes on this video, on this cast. And I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways. Because I don't know what else I'd do with my life, but thank you for watching. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far, and hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. As Team Serill versus Team Clem yet again. Just a couple months ago, in another iteration of this same 2v2 circuit, Team Serill versus Team Clem was one of the best StarCraft 2 games I've ever seen. And I know it seems like we have one of those every week, which means we're very good at picking them out. But with the patron saint of cheesy strategies, the connoisseur of conniving cheese, the host of this tournament itself, I expect not only one of the best games, but maybe one a little bit better. uThermal, in case you couldn't pick it up from context clues, going by one of his less subtle, yet clearly descriptive names, Cheese Maniac, instead of his given name, uThermal. It's remarkably recognizable, though. Spawning pool is completed, but nothing particularly quick. The only notable thing so far is that uThermal has not yet expanded. He has a factory on the way. There's pings all over the board. No idea. I believe they were actually coordinating over chat, and I think uThermal, if he doesn't already, will have a video about it. But I assume speaking English, but everyone here speaks StarCraft. So, Clem, not just one, but 2 commit. Clem, you can't just... This is 2v2. You can't just do 3 CC. One rack, like, one Rex, now a second Rex, has almost no units at all. Trigger is going for a Stargate. This is the epitome of greed here. Now, they have correctly gambled that Serral and uThermal are not going for a super fast rush / all-in. There was, I believe, a probe scout earlier, because of course Clem as a Terran was never going to scout, but Reaper's headed in now. Does it? Oh! Clem gets caught on the Reaper jump, which means it's coming around. Though Serral actually has an Overlord in position, so the Reaper's... The Reaper's efforts here are dramatic and also mostly futile, as, yeah, the Overlord spotted the Stargate. But, you know, it's good to confirm, and it made the Reaper feel special. Kept him busy for a little bit longer. Now, a Cyclone already took out one of the Adepts headed across the map, and that's a whole heap and helping of Zerglings. Interesting phrasing, but early pressure out of the Northern team. Now, what is there to defend? Almost nothing. A single Oracle, a single Adept, a few Marines. That shield battery going to be putting in a lot of work. A second Oracle's about to complete. The Cyclone laying on the damage, but the shield battery's up to the task for now. 2 for each side. Things are escalating. The Oracles will try to target down the Cyclone while the lock-on's on cooldown. Looks like they will be able to pick off another. Zergling's got one of the Adepts, and Clem will help finish off the second clone. So, the early pressure for the Northern team, Team Serral, uThermal. I'm sure we can come up with something more clever than... is mildly successful in that they got a full scout of what's going on. The best way to scout your opponent is to simply hit them in the face and see how they respond, especially in 2v2 where you regularly need both players to be in position to deal with it. But the Oracles are tied up back at home. Serral not only has a third, but a fourth hatchery on the way. He stalled drone production to make those Zerglings, as is so often the case. But, oh, the Overlord gets in. It will spot a second Stargate. A Phoenix will come out to chastise the Overlord for such prying eyes, but it's a bit of a creeper itself. Meanwhile, Clem gets a Reaper all the way into the main, and that is actually a pretty huge deal. Seeing the 3 racks, confirming this despite the early Cyclones, despite the early pressure. This is not going to be mech, but it's going to be a bunch of Marines and maybe some siege tanks. Clem already has 1-1 on the way. A ridiculously fast double upgrade rush, which those who enjoy some uThermal should probably appreciate. And I said it was too greedy. I don't know if I phrased it like that. I'd like to hedge my bets, but well, they got away with it. So it seems like it was just greedy enough. Trigger's taking a 3rd base. Now, the most difficult part from here on out will be Clem expanding. Where's that 3rd command set? Okay, it's heading out. Serill is just massing up Zerglings. 20 more lings on the way. His lair's only halfway done. He's up to 60 drones. But the mass Zergling can keep a lot of this at bay. And spamming Phoenixes, Trigger is focusing on air control. This is a mid to late game option. Lifting up Zerglings does feel like a waste of their talents. And more importantly, their energy. The 3rd base for Clem, trying to be taken at the 3 o'clock, but uThermal and Serral both setting their sights on it. Trigger has a single pylon up here. He has several Phoenixes ready, but otherwise very little to defend outright. Clem has his work cut out for him, and while the Marines might have the upgrades, the numbers, they don't lie, and they might spell disaster for this base. Trying to put together some cannons. Siege tank on the low ground. Oracle's not nearly enough space to deal with it. Micro's back. Phoenix is coming up, but one of the Oracles both knocked out of the sky. The Zergling's boxing out the Marines. Picks up some of them on the right side. Can target down the Phoenixes. 1, 2, even after another. Pulls away from the base. The Marines' medevac's finally on point, and just in time to maybe stop the bleeding. But the base itself has been lifted. It's just fully retreating. The siege tank picked up, but uThermal should be able to knock it down. Right back onto the ground, and the siege tank still the linchpin of this attack. So far, the aggression will continue. 50 workers for uThermal, 60 for Serral, 67 for Trigger, who's been a little reckless with the probe production, but continuing. He's building 2 more Stargates. He will take air control, or Clem and Trigger will die trying. There's already 2-2 on the way for both Serral and Clem, but Serral has somehow overtaken him. Clearly focused on those upgrades and absolutely everything else. He's up to 69 drones, which is the nicest economy in the game so far. The siege tanks might be able to target one down. The Marines moving forward. Siege, more units, reinforcements, and medevacs getting cut off by the Phoenixes. Huge pickoffs by Trigger. Not able to engage the army directly, but able to pick it apart until they can. Microbial Shroud on the way for Serral, but we don't have time to talk about that for now. A very interesting and possibly useful choice. The Marines will be surrounded. The Zerglings covering for the Marines of uThermal. Phoenix is trying to do their part, but their part is now put in the unit's loss tab. Siege tank staggered onto the high ground, doesn't quite get the medevac. Scans forward, knocks one down. A second one pulls back just in time, but the Zerglings are already inside the base, cutting off the reinforcements. Another siege tank lifted up, and this time around, uThermal not going to be able to save it, and Clem knocks it down. But the Zerglings change target, find Clem's new 3rd base. A fresh mule will immediately retreat. The Zerglings will have to pull back, and Microbial Shroud is on the way. Microbial Shroud reduces the damage of all units, reduces range damage taken by all units underneath the Shroud by 50%. All units, friends, enemies, acquaintances, colleagues, cousins you don't really like but technically are allied with you. Oh, that's Game of Thrones. That means, in this scenario, with Marines against Marines, it could certainly make the difference. Though Fungal is obviously pretty good as he catches Clem's entire front line, and uThermal will back it up with ease. The medevac's out of energy, and many of them now out of life. The siege tank caught. Marauders move forward. The Phoenix is almost... Carrier has arrived, but it feels like the definition of too little. And probably too late. More Phoenixes knocked down, desperately trying to deal with these Marines. The carrier has no interceptors. Clem's coming down. Zerglings on top of the few Marines that are left over. The orbital command will be forced to be lifted yet again. The SCVs retreated to the corner. An Ultraless cavern completed throughout all this. Chitinous plating is on the way. Serral has 76 drones and 5 bases. He's been untouched. He gets through some of the cannons at the 3 o'clock. He's gonna knock out the 6 o'clock, and he's expanded not too far away. uThermal also keeping up the pressure. He just started his 2-2 upgrades, though, whereas Clem has already completed them for his significantly lower Marine count. I really didn't think that's where it was going. Actually, they have about the same, but uThermal has more tanks. Some of the infestors are picked up. Active cloaking. Is there no scan ready? What they can't see, they can't kill, and for now, the Marines on the high ground cloaked by the mothership, able to cover absolutely everything, finally gets a scan, but I think he didn't have the energy. And the mothership holding the high ground. 8-9 kills the Marines in autumn colors, getting knocked out by the mothership's multifaceted beams, picks up another infestor, might be able to knock it down. There's just no anti-air. The infestors have been whittled down, the Marines have been all but removed, and the mothership from Trigger as the Sky Toss Armada. Sure, the dregs of it to start, but the mothership and a few carriers, just enough to tilt the scales right back towards Team Clem Trigger to the south. But 6 Ultralisks are popping out of the eggs right now for Serral. We can say he certainly has a flair for drama. He's got a Spire completed. 3-3 upgrades are already on the way. Throughout all of this, despite the fact that the Northerners have not been able to break the army entirely, Serral... Oh, we don't have the mining here because it's 2v2. Serral has been mining from 5 bases to some extent throughout the majority of the last few minutes. The infestors, Ultras, there's no way the Marines can get the damage done, but the Ultras can't do anything against the carriers. Of course, the carriers won't do much more than give them a deep tissue massage with those interceptors, especially if Microbial Shroud gets involved. But with the Golden Armada coming together with the Sky Toss army, there's only 31 Marines from uThermal, a handful of Queens, a couple infestors. There's not really enough anti-air to deal with this. And uThermal, a chunk of his army, is cutting off reinforcements at the natural, which is actually quite helpful, but it might reduce the critical mass that he needs in order to deal with the carriers. Serral's making Corruptors now by Microbial Shroud, but there's just not enough units to take advantage of it. Clem gonna knock out a base to the top right corner. Serral returns fire with some Zerglings down to the south. Gets through one. Oh, it's not a planetary. And Clem knocking out 2 bases for the price of 1. Meanwhile, the mothership's still dueling with the Marines. The Queens are driven back. The mothership's shields are stripped away, but she has 35 kills. The mothership, the true hero here, despite the lack of hero here. The Ultralists just eviscerate an orbital command. A single one gets into the natural. And it's enough between the Liberator and the siege tanks, but otherwise the carriers, they do nothing. Barely even bothering the Ultralisks. They don't take no guff from Protoss. But thankfully, siege tanks and Liberators do not fire guff. They fire very high damage single target weapons and are able to take out some of those Ultras. Clem trying to box out. Trigger at 140 supply, Serral at 180. But uThermal and Clem significantly lower. Clem down to 30 SCVs. Did he ever get 3-3? No, both Terrans at 2-2 with Stim and Combat Shield. uThermal starts +3 armor. Corruptors being added on as it falls to Serral, both to deal with the ground and the air for now. More racks, reactors on the way. Now, there was a... I'm not sure if he actually took this base out or he just replaced it with another one. A lot going on. A lull in the action as both sides have been hitting so hard. They need a moment to recover. And the infestors, oh no, burrows everything, including the Ultralisks, but manages to slink away with the infestors. This base just going to be excised from the map. The Corruptor count coming together. The Ultras can clear out everything underneath. Unfortunately, there's nothing there. There's nothing underneath this. It's all air. And is there enough to deal with it? The mothership covering. The cloaking device that throws out a fungal. The Viper leading the charge. The interceptors are on the wrong side to deal with this. Parasitic bomb hitting all of the carriers. Clem pulls back to help deal with it. But actually, that parasitic bomb doing absolutely terrible, terrible damage. Emotionally, mostly. And they could be repaired. Almost every single carrier took maximum damage from the parabomb, but it was still not enough. And Trigger at 170 supply. And every team game player, even every StarCraft 2 player knows this situation. I tried so hard, and I got so far, but in the end, they built way too many carriers. Knocks down one Void Ray, but continuing to slice forward. The Ultras looking for a target and finding less and less options. Another base could be taken down, but the Venn diagram of freedom from Clem is making things difficult right now. Continuing to move forward. There's more Corruptors on the way. The Liberators still moving forward. The Corruptors, another scan. The Queen's out in front of everything. The Liberators on top of it. Mothership is taken down. One carrier. Interceptors almost. There's a siege tank underneath. But there's no more interceptors. They're all gone. Only 11 interceptors for 9 carriers. And somehow they were able to take all the interceptors out of the sky. And for now, the Northerners will survive. But we got to ask ourselves that question. Have you liked and subscribed? And at what cost? Serral still has 81 drones. A Nexus taken out. They were never able to re-expand to the 3 o'clock. A single Liberator going to take out some of uThermal's SCVs. Clem hasn't built an SCV in like half the game. He needs repairs. And he needed to rebuild the interceptor count. So the problem is still present. It's the carriers. Eventually, they rebuild the interceptors. They're able to regroup the army. And Serral has significantly less to deal with it. Are we gonna base trade? uThermal has a lot going in the top right corner. Serral has almost no money. You can trade. uThermal has 2,000 gas that I think Serral could really use right now, though neither player might be thinking of the fact you could actually trade resources in this game. Not a usual thing. The drones, the Trail of Tears. The drones being slaughtered by the dozen. Oh no. Serral loses 30 drones in seconds. He's down to 120 supply. The Terran toss death ball is continuing to roll around the map. The drones and the SCVs. Oh no. The refugee planetary. The last fortress. And despite having less bases, the army, Trigger has built up the momentum. Another mothership is on the way. Those carriers +3 attack. No armor, but if they don't get close enough, doesn't really matter. Serral's setting up. He's got the infestors. And against carriers, Microbial Shroud could be very good. uThermal doesn't repair the planetary. Everything's coming in. And here we go. He's looking for the Wombo combo. The Viper doesn't have enough energy. Where are the Fungals? Microbial Shroud on the Marines. He's trying to hold the line. He's just hold position. Trying to take down the Interceptors. A single Liberator. It's not enough. The Interceptors are swatted out of the sky. The Microbial Shroud allowed the Marines to make the critical mass of damage they needed. And the carriers are trying to fly into the next game. Well, everyone is under 100 supply. Trigger's down to 65. The income has dwindled to under 1,000 across the board. And somehow, well, Clem has a whole bunch of medevacs with his entire army inside them. Serral is down to several mineral patches of mining. Like single digit. High single digit, but single digit. What a game. Is this Betterist? More SCVs. I'm down to 18. Trigger, 27. Serral has 46 drones, which means his army is at... Oh, uThermal! The only player over 100 supply. The carriers have not quite rebuilt. He just activated the interceptors on his teammates on Clem's orbital command. But the Marines will stand their ground, and without the splash damage to knock him out, they cannot be stopped. He's tearing through everything. The Fungal holds down the carriers. He knocks down the last ones. The mothership is exploderated. And Team Serral uThermal in a roller coaster. Though most of the time keeping the pressure on, it truly looked like they had turned it around. The rubber band of Sky Toss had snapped back. But in the rare scenario where 332 interceptors dead, just 11 carriers. 500 Marines. A slaughter. The rare scenario where targeting the interceptors was the ideal choice, because there wasn't enough splash damage to stop the Marines. Microbial Shroud is a great Terran spell. The takeaway from this one. Honestly, both Vipers and Infestors are incredible in 1v1. And an order of magnitude better in 2v2. So match point, just like that. We're flipping the cool and warm colors. In the top left, still to the north of Reclamation, uThermal and Serral against Trigger and Clem. And I don't know if uThermal played random, as he's done in some of these tournaments, or if he chose his native Terran. But interesting, the probe turned around for any amount of time. That's already suspicious. Never trust a probe. Exhausting game. And completely different styles. A full, like, everyone's represented. We got the Sky Toss. Both Terrans going for the meat grinder Marine tank, supported as best they could by their teammates, or led. Honestly, it was more like Serill leading the charge and uThermal following it up. I'm not locked in here with you. That is literally untrue. I don't. Now, I'm not sure what the resources were. That's something I'm not even factoring in, even though we have the fancy observer cam. How many resources? At one point, uThermal had 2,000 gas, and Serral had none. And you know who's probably going to make better use of it, especially considering recalls out the probe, the unit compositions? So, I'm not sure if we added a trading tax on this version, but it was partially because of Clem playing against Max Packs in last year's 2v2 tournament. It did not take long. So 2v2, despite being arguably more intense and more competitive, though with some rough edges, but 2v2 allows you to send resources to your teammate. No tax, no tribute fee, for those who know what I'm talking about. But the timer used to be 5 minutes in StarCraft time, which means like around 4 minutes in what's now real time. But you know what happened in last year's version of this tournament? Almost every time, at least when we got to the higher levels, it was Terran Protoss and feed the Protoss like 500 gas the moment the timer ends, and they go mass Phoenix into carrier. Kind of like we just saw. But imagine getting the carriers and Phoenixes out like 2 minutes quicker. Yeah. So, actually implemented a significantly longer timer. I believe it's 7 minutes, which is when in a relatively normal game you can easily have 3 bases or so. I'm not sure if we're flirting with the idea of an actual tax, like in Age of Empires or in Beyond All Reason in some modes, where trading resources also... Trading is wrong. It's just giving resources, but you know what I mean. Now, I don't know if the players are utilizing it, because unfortunately 2v2 has always been just 1v1's weirder cousin for Blizzard. There's been almost no admissions besides just having like an observer interface. Imagine if some of the co-op synergy, and we could probably do it with bots if there's enough interest and all that. But imagine if creep didn't block your teammates from mauling off. Or, well, that's a pretty big example. As Zerg, it sometimes feels like you're screwing over your team almost as much as your enemies. I gotta say, a very passive start. Not even an attempt at aggression from either side here. Now, this map has a secondary ramp. There's a ramp to each base, but there's also a ramp to the natural, like the naturals. And quite a choke point over to the right side. So an even more defensible set. I wish you could see your teammates' mini-map cams. You can see it in co-op. There's so much stuff that's in co-op that I wish just kind of carried over to 2v2. It's already so good, but just a few little things, it could be so much better. All right. Serral with 63 drones. Building a few more. I thought he was going to go for a big roach timing, but seems more interested in a full macro build. Is there an infestation pit? No. Oh, 66 drones on the dot. Zerglings. Now, uThermal's going to have the upgrade advantage over... We're comparing the Terrans with each other since they've played a very similar style so far. Serral. That Zergling is perfectly... It's in the trees. Oh my, it's so perfect. The sneakiest Zergling there ever was. Finally finds it, but that Zergling paying dividends there. Finally gets taken out. Well, what a hero. Spotting all those units moving out. Now, what do we have here? A single Marine on the high ground. Yeah, get him! Even shift queuing it up. All right, all right. And the longer we go without aggression, the more dramatic the eventual clash will be. That always holds true. And 1v1 and 2v2, and... Well, here we go. Everyone's involved. Blink Stalkers. Clem gets a little bit abandoned, just like some of those Marines. They'll expect some of us in the wreckage, brothers. But, for all the fire and fury, the Northerners still able to press through. That's 4 siege tanks. uThermal significantly later on the medevacs, and by that I mean he has none, which is much later. Whereas Serral with the Roach Ravager ready to punch through. The siege tanks continue to move forward. Clem has the medevacs, but Trigger has gone for the gateway-based army. But charge isn't even done yet. Force fields trying to help out, but 4 tanks to just 1, and corrosive bows almost make it none. Reinforcing with another one on the low ground. Sells at 160 supply, everybody else languishing between 100 and 120. Of course, Roach is not known for being supply efficient, but he's just getting out in front of these siege tanks as the push continues. Clem does not have enough to really stall it out on the low ground, and Trigger not enough on the high. The scans on either side, keeping tabs on everything. Serral continuing to shove forward with the Roach Ravager. The siege tanks now in range of the mineral line. The Roaches and Ravagers closing in as well. And this door is actually shut. The way is shut. Oh, open up. Trigger about to get locked out of his own base by Clem's depots. Of course, the Stalkers can blink across them. But things are looking very dicey for Clem and Trigger so far. The Marines were picked up and dropped out to cut off reinforcements, and so far doing quite a great job of it. But they still are not really dealing with the elephant in the room. This entire push. The Nexus, 1 shot away. Gotta be careful not to shut the door on it too hard. The Stalkers blink forward, and, well, the Nexus lives for now until somebody sneezes on it. Which almost feels like you should just get rid of it and then rebuild it, but the Nexus has 6 HP. Trigger manages to survive. Serral has tunneling claws. Burrow move Roach is on the way. The Stalkers just stagger blinking back to the high ground. 2-2 is about to complete for Serral. Just ignoring the damage of the Marines and tanks, but not also ignoring the Blink Stalkers. Meanwhile, dropping the main. uThermal comes back to defend. Blink Stalkers pushing forward. The burrow move will be spotted, but unfortunately, the wall was torn down. And that means Serral will casually burrow through. Meanwhile, dueling with the army on the field. Clem Trigger trying to push through, but the roaches are in the mineral line. And now they already know that it's going to get worse. Serral pushing for Clem retreats, blinks back. The SCV starting to fall. The probe count has already dipped precipitously. Clem darts in with a drop and sends out another set of medevacs. Deja vu. We've just been in this place before. Unfortunately, the desperation drops I don't think are going to be enough to stall the momentum. And Serral and uThermal in pole position to take home a clean sweep. Scans, and that's just so much. Bearing down on the only siege tank, a couple liberators, more than desperate. The anti-air is pretty lacking. Overlaps them as he goes towards the low ground. And that may stall this out for a few more seconds. But there's a roach that's racked up only 3 kills on that one. All right, its friends got a lot more done. The Marines will take down 3-4 of these medevacs, but more will drop out. And, well, it's all over but the G's. The Nexus, still an EMP and a strong glance away. The Marines, desperate, but impotent as well. The other Nexus to the high ground knocks out a siege tank. The Liberators may hold some of the ground, but the rest... Hey! Thank you! GG! Serral and uThermal claim 2 games to none for Clem Trigger. The concerted timing, and what a game 1. Game 2, a bit more, well, almost as one-sided as a Mobius strip there, but that doesn't mean we're done. That means they move on. And we're gonna follow that journey to, however far it takes us. Or at least to another series. Lambo and Max Pax. Zerg Protoss versus Zerg Terran. Max Pax probably, I believe Max Pax won more, at least as part of the team, than any other player in last year's 2v2 tournament. Which, you know, a little surprising he works so well with others, but you know what? And I do believe they're communicating. We've heard Max Pax speak before. At least someone who claims to be Max. Okay, everybody, like, at this point, if all the pros say yes, that's actually Max Pax, I believe them. But it is curious that Max Pax is so good at team games. But we'll see if he's good enough to take on these 2 titans. And of course, Lambo's also here. That is such a disservice to Lambo. Lambo, I'm not sure to the extent, but both Serral and Raynor have talked about him like a coach in the past. He is one of the top 5 Zergs in the world. It's just the disparity between Serral and, you know, humans is quite large. Ah, it appears we've moved servers. You see, I know this now. Probably the European server, where uThermal has morphed into rat gameplay. Another staple of, at least one to mark down of his many aliases. Spawning pools on the way. And there is a pocket base here on Undercurrent, our only underwater map in any of the map pools. So we have those fancy physics, and by that I mean just things kind of float up. We need more. All right, let's pick more of those. It's such a bit. There's a reason Abyssal Reef was in the map pool for like 4 years, and then like a year. Okay, it was 2 years, and then it was a year again, significantly later on, like last year or 2 years ago. It's all blending together. What year is it? That's not important. Stargate is the choice. Of course. It's been proven time and time again. Doesn't matter the amount of players in the game, the matchup. I guess maybe not Protoss versus Terran in 1v1, but it's just too much utility to not use overall. Interesting. We've got the double factory. Is uThermal taking us to McDonald's? But he's taking the pocket base at the back, which is a full base. It has 8 mineral pouches, 2 gases. Pocket bases sometimes are a more budget option and have less resources because they're so easily defensible. But in 2v2, less relevant. And another build up early on. Max Packs and Lambo. Lambo with 3 hatches to Serral's 3 as well. Nobody's taken the back base here, interestingly. Twilight Council on the way. While the first Oracle is building, yes. So Max Pack's going to be swerving immediately after the first Oracle into some other angle of attack. Very interested to see where he ends up going with it. I feel like Max Packs and Lambo will have a plan. Like, Serral and uThermal probably have a strategy. At least, a general idea of where they want to go with it. But I feel like Max Packs and Lambo have a build. Okay, an order with it even. So we'll see where that takes them. The fact that Lambo's getting a lair at less than 4 minutes is very notable. That's why I noted it. The Zerglings boxing out. Serral gets a scout. There's 2 more gases. It'd be but Serral gets Zerglings all throughout the base. He spots the Twilight. He spots additional gates. He spots the Stargate not building. Oh! And the Oracle gets away despite the scan committed. Aspire for land. I didn't think Mutas would be on the agenda. But interesting that Oracle into Blink, and then Lambo's going to try to fill in with Mutas. Serral, on the other hand, just a more standard timing on the lair. For some my reflex was wondering why that Oracle didn't light up and kill drones. And it took me several seconds to realize why that would make no sense. It's an adjustment, these team games. It's so ingrained watching Oracles melt drones. Somehow more than almost anything else. Tense working relationship. Infestation pit for Serral. So Mass Cyclone with Mag Field Accelerator, increasing that lock-on damage by 50%. That is a very good counter to Mutas. Will Max Pack send gas to Lambo? It's kind of hard to tell unless there's a huge amount and then it goes down without building anything. But that could very well be the case. Adding another 5 or 6 Mutas early certainly opens up more options for early damage. The Blink Stalkers will hunt down the Hellions. The Cyclone count, 2, which is not enough. Meanwhile, Serral has 3 Queens, a few Spore Crawlers. That's it. Like, the anti-air is severely lacking. There are 10 Mutas flapping their way across. What the hell? Hellion? Watching the pieces of the Hellion go by. And the Mutas are at least either spotted or suspected. And now confirmed. Unfortunately, the Cyclones will lock on and knock down 3 immediately. Whoa! Don't worry about that. Max Packs trading. And Serral, without enough roaches to really deal with the Stalkers heads up, needs support from the Siege Tank and ideally some Cyclones, but I don't think he's going to get it. There's not enough Cyclones producing to match the Muta count as Lambo just completely undercuts any attempts to move out. The Stalkers are whittling down the roach count and forcing Serral to continue building units here. He's at 66 drones. Lambo's at 72 drones on his side of the map. The Zerglings get in. We'll spot no hive. They'll spot no gases at the back. and they'll drag some of the units back, but overall, siege tanks continue moving forward. A few stalkers go down, but a small price to pay. The muta count is growing so dramatically. That's not enough Cyclones. And the fact that the Cyclones are caught in front, the mutas get on top of everything. Many of them will get knocked down. Serral tries to box out. But, well, are there enough roaches? A few more mutas locked by the Cyclones. The Queens, hey, this is restricted lair space. And who's gonna enforce it, Brenda? I was hoping they wouldn't call me on that. I don't, no one calls anyone anymore. Vipers. The most direct answer. He needs Parasitic Bomb desperately. It takes... Well, Parasitic Bomb on some of the mutas is going to make it that much easier for the Cyclones to take it out, and the Planetary halts. Serral with the Vipers holding the line, but uThermal supply dipping dramatically. There's a Dark Shrine on the way for... Oh, max packs. A few of the roaches get caught in a stasis, and they've done nothing to slow down the progression on the other side. None of these players are going to be caught staring at 5,000 minerals in the bank while they're microing. Max Pax has 4 going on 5 bases with 84 probes. Lambo has 78 drones, similar amount of bases. Both Serral and uThermal stuck on 3 apiece. And they're not building this sort of late game idyllic army that is unbeatable by all but the most expensive. No, it's just roaches and Cyclones. DT Blink on the way for Max Pax. More clones for uThermal. He's got +1 mech armor. The muta count is at 22. Cyclones, just a dozen. The roaches trying to wrap around, the mutas trying to box them out. And Zerglings from Lambo, the roaches doing a lot of waggling around here, trying to get in front of the Cyclones, but I think they spotted the stasis, or just pulls back to deal with it. Parasitic Bomb on the mutas forces him away to key time. And there's a Spore Crawler really helping out, targeting the Planetary. And the Planetary will be taken out despite heavy losses from Lambo. Max Pack's gonna shift around over to the right side, and the hatchery's under fire. And Serral and uThermal on the ropes right now. Desperately needs another base. Scans up to the high ground. Max Pax blinks away, breaks most of the locks before they become relevant. And they got the map. Max Pax at like 6-7 bases. 91 probes. Lambo doing... the only downside for Lambo is he just started his hive, but otherwise, things going incredible. Another stasis catches the absolute perfect amount. He might actually be able to fight the Hydras, which do not have speed either. Halfway done, but some Zealots will catch him at the back. The Stalkers thinking about blinking forward, but just gonna stagger blink back. Meanwhile, the mutas, another chunk of them being caught by the Cyclones, but that means the Cyclones aren't here to help Serral defend. And the Hydras are trading directly, and they're glass cannons at best. And right now being shattered easily by just gateway units. Serral 136, uThermal 130 supply. The light is dimming at the end of the tunnel. The Vipers, the last hope. He needs the Parasitic Bombs to just wipe out the mutas. And ideally with enough energy for Blinding Cloud left over to deal with the Stalkers. That's the dream. And maybe a nightmare. They are... The closer they get to 200 supply, the better the chances, obviously. As now Team Lampax is maxed out. Maxpo. Both are pretty cool, actually. But much more intuitive than Serral. Salermal. Is there detection? Yes. A Spore Crawler from Serral. Some DTs in the main, though. An optimistic warp in. That Spore Crawler actually knocks it down. Max Pax with the Stalkers might actually be able to take out this base. The Viper's in a precarious position. And loses a hatchery. Serral, another hatchery down. And they just can't catch a break. And they're almost broke in. They had their turn being the aggressors against Clem Trigger, but Lambo and Max Pax clearly came prepared. this Mutaling and Stalker Zealot composition. The Muta's struggling mightily against the Parasitic Bomb, but they will heal. The Cyclone's not enough. They can't be everywhere they need to be. And Serral does not have the sort of unit composition that can turn this around. He's about to have +3 Hydras. This is it. This is the best army you're gonna get. The full push. Hydra clone versus Stalkers and Mutas. A few Zealots at the back. But there's no going home. Not anymore. There's almost no home to go back to. The Muta's cutting off the reinforcements. The Vipers could maybe help box it out. A couple Mutas split off. The Stalkers really struggling in the direct confrontation here. The Muta count is so damn high. A few Vipers making their way back. The Stalkers still sandbagging this as best they can. He needs the parabombs. The Mutas are driven away. The last army from Serral and uThermal trying to fight and has shaved away 2 of the bases. But MaxPax has done such a great job of keeping him busy. A scan confirms a few more kills with the clones, but Lambo's maxed out. MaxPax could probably be there if he puts some more effort into it. How many gates? 14 gateways, so... And a smattering of incredibly dangerous units just waiting on the high ground. Parasitic Bomb. uThermal is in the game still. I mean, he's got that... an absolutely bad-mannered amount of Banelings here. Like, there's a disruptor from one side and Banelings from all the others. It's a disaster for the northern team. And they will be humbled by Maxbo. And because uThermal left the game, that's when it cuts off. As thank you to uThermal for the replays. Wow. The concerted effort by MaxPax and Lambo just collapsing on the army and keeping him so busy the entire game. At no point did it really feel like they were threatened by Serill and uThermal. The switch from MaxPax going Stargate into the Mass Muta, I think, was just the sort of tone switch that kept them off balance. Mutas are great if you can get that sort of number. It's just getting there is usually the struggle. But Game 2, we're back on Reclamation. Quite honestly, one of the best 2v2 games I've seen. While Game 1 of Team Serral versus Team Clem, I think, was one of the most exciting. Did it beat Team Serral versus Team Clem from earlier in the year? You be the judge. But that was... They came prepared. It's a beautiful dance. Takes 2 to tango. Apparently 2 to murder the best player in the world. And also Serral. I got you. Will they bring back the aggression? Either side. Ooh. Second Rax in the the second Rax successfully hidden by uThermal. Cheeky move. And it works. Wow, not even trying. Like, just a few pixels off the beaten path is apparently enough. And the difference between 1 and 2 Rexes is quite dramatic. That's the difference between... Come on in. Come on in. Tempting. But MaxPax knows that's a very less than masterful bait. Now, I'm not sure. It's going to be hard for uThermal to know for sure that that second Rex didn't get scouted. It was literally 1 pixel, like 1 scouting range away. So I don't think they can rely on the element of surprise there. Or at least they won't. We know that. MaxPax, of course, doesn't, but... Twilight Council first. No Stargate. Spicy. 2 Reapers. Now, any doubts will be removed. So much to keep track of. It's a real adjustment. Just trying to... One, describing who's actually... Because usually in Zerg versus Terran, I'm like, the Overlord is getting driven out. It's pretty clear who's who and what's what. But here, we gotta get a little more specific. No, I didn't. It was Serral's Overlord, by the way. Actually taken down by MaxPax's Stalker, which he invested in early. But did it see? He did see the Twilight. I'm not sure if it was the Overlord or the Reapers, but... Knowing the Twilight is first as opposed to a Stargate is a huge deal. And that makes a direct ground attack a lot more dangerous. And here we go. Trying to chase down the Queens. The Zerglings getting the wrap around the Queens. Oh. 2 going to be assassinated immediately. Probes pulled off the line. Shield battery full energy for now. But Serill just continually repositioning the Lings to box out for the Reapers. uThermal finally loses 1. And behind it, drones, SCVs, a 3rd command center is on the way. By no means all in. Just something to kind of take back control of the situation. Get off my... We don't like your kind around here. You get them, Brenda? Yeah. You know there's Zerg too. Not in my book. You can read? It's a figure of speech. Sorry. I am blacked out for... What's the damage? Lambo's down to 30 drones. As he focused on rebuilding the Zerglings. He's gonna try to do some counter-aggression. The Queen and drones will evacuate from the 3rd base. And mostly successful. Meanwhile, Warp Prism on the way across. Blink is completed for MaxPax, who is using those Stalkers to great effect. So 40 drones in total. Any upgrades? Just the basics. No basic unit upgrades at all, even in production, let alone done. This base may have to be abandoned. Half HP. Looking to cut off reinforcements. Not gonna happen. Meanwhile, the Zerglings. Lambo's jammed himself into some nice corners there. Acutely aware of the situation. Meanwhile, MaxPax's gonna juggle those Blink Stalkers for all they're worth and probably more past that. As the medevacs just came out, Stim is done for the Marines. That's a big deal. The biggest one, I think, of all this. The boys are pulled off the line. Serral rallying Zerglings into the fray, dodging corrosive bile. Both sides throwing the Zerg out in front so their teammates behind can get as much done as possible. Some more Roaches cutting things off. The Stalkers blinking back. The Roaches bearing the brunt of it. And inconclusive. But overall, the very simple fact is that Serral's at 80 supply. Lambo's at 66. Serral has 41 drones to Lambo's 30. Lambo continuing to build units. The Blink Stalkers, he desperately wants to deal with that siege tank, but if he blinks forward, the only place he'll be getting out is the unit's lost tab. Or Prism reinforcing. Lambo is all in. The Zerglings will spot that MaxPax is trying for a 3rd base. I say trying because it may be a focal point that they want to keep from succeeding. The Stalkers will be slurped into the Prism. Try to drag some of the units back. Meanwhile, the Zerglings, nope. Siege tank is in position to box out. Might be able to get a few of the Marines, a couple SCVs, but if he loses the Prism, that's likely a direct line to losing the game right now. A very thin margin for Team Maxpo. Team Lampax. I'll go back and forth just to make it confusing. A Zergling counterattack. Lambo just built a round of drones. Serral's gonna unbuild them. uThermal's economy is acceptable. 46 SCVs. Serral's only at 40. Oh, he blocked forward! Why is there a drone here? Lambo accidentally rallying his drones across the map. That's how you know he's under a lot of pressure. Beautiful mineral drill there to get us around on the Zerglings. And Serral's only had 41 drones, so now the script is somewhat flipped. Serral's the one with the mediocre economy. Lambo's managed to get his back to a more reasonable state, but at the cost of having a significantly lighter standing army. Right now, Lambo has 30 Zerglings and like a half dozen roaches. Well, much like your mother, Serral has a lot more weight to throw around. 31 roaches, 2 Ravagers. But just locking down the center base. Some pings over to the left side as they know the map is dark and full of lings. Lambo building what units he can, but the full brunt of Serral and uThermal's army. The Stalker's not able to fight, and they're backed up against a corner here. He can't defend the base and micro the Stalker as well simultaneously. Corrosive Bow's getting a lot of damage, but Serral just punching through. The Zerglings cutting up the reinforcements. Should be cleaned up eventually, but there's just not enough back at home to defend. The Immortal pops out, actually manages to slip away for now. The medevacs are completely out of energy from healing absolutely everyone underneath. And there's just not enough. Some more Stalkers. The siege tank's kind of strung out. Might be able, but still targets an Immortal. The counterattack was fully cleaned up. The Roaches and a couple Ravagers mixed in. Blunk's forward, but Serral will take out several of those Stalkers. He left some of the Roaches to make sure the probes were taken care of as well. And this game tilting a lot further towards the northern team than the previous. An almost impossible battle. MaxPack's making so much progress with the Blink Stalkers, but it's almost impossible to end the game with them outright. You whittle away the armies and then your teammate sweeps in and claims victory. But unfortunately, I don't think Lambo's going to be doing any sweeping anytime soon. And neither is his team. As momentarily we should be tied up. One last fight. The Stalker's out in front. A single Templar. No Storm. Maybe the Templar looking angry will be a no. Doesn't even have enough energy even if he did have Storm. G on both sides. We're all tied up and going to game number 3. Serral and uThermal strike back with a concerted timing after defending the aggression. A bit more back and forth, but a clear victory for the northern team. Game number 3, the decider. This from uThermal's $50,000 2v2 circuit. I believe each of these monthly tournaments has a prize of between $1,000 and $2,000. I'm not sure if it's based on crowdfunding exactly. But he crowdfunded from 10 to 50,000. I think the goal was 20, but you know what? In StarCraft 2, we're suffering from the success of having incredibly generous and so I was trying to parlay this into these suggestions I've gotten of creating a sort of fund for StarCraft 2 tournaments. And I'll let you know that already exists. Wardy, uThermal, Pig, and myself, but I also sponsored those tournaments. But they're out there. And even though there might not be a major, like, Saudi Sports Washing Cup or an actual BlizzCon tournament put on by a company that remembers they have this game and not making it into a mobile game shooter, it's out there, and the interest is there. And I desperately want the algorithm to learn that 2v2 is arguably more exciting than 1v1. And honestly, after watching now 1v1, the meta changes. And for every new meta that I claim on those titles, let's be honest. So, now the counter argument is people have been making the same units in Brood War for 28 years. And also, if a strategy hasn't been used for 6 months, honestly, for 2 months, it's effectively new when it comes to pro play because it's so figured out and it's so down to several seconds here or there. Though it might not feel that way to the more casual observer. Where was I going with this? 2v2. It's dessert. Okay, you might not want it for every entree, but I wouldn't like to go so many meals without dessert. So I'm looking forward to more and more of the 2v2 tournaments. And make sure to check out and support uThermal. I think his second channel, uThermal 2, very original, right? That makes too much sense. You got to name it something completely different, like Winter Gaming TV, because Winter Gaming was taken by a Call of Duty YouTuber in 2013 who has like 5,000 videos with several hundred views apiece. I don't know if that's still true. Maybe he's blown up. But my point is, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Make sure to check out uThermal and however this goes. What a set. That wasn't a dramatic ending. We're just kind of doing the early game builds. It's a proxy gate. MaxPax is one basing. The Overlord. Overlords. Stalkers stalking. Overlords creeping. So everybody doing their role playing here. And what's not to love about that? Serral. Okay, bunkers on the way. Spine crawlers as well. Treating this with the respect it deserves. Realizing now that this is effectively a one base all-in from both sides. Lambo has 20 workers. MaxPax has 24. While Lambo has 2 hatcheries, they're just being used for production. So this is an all-out, all-in. 3 spine crawlers forming the backbone of the defense. Queens trying to make their way down in a very uncomfortable but eventually successful path. The bunkers can't really combine with the spine crawlers because of the necessities of creep. But they've built the wall of defense. Can they hold it? Banelings are on the way. Another bunker will be canceled. The Banelings out in front. Serral doesn't have that many lings. The lings trying to wrap around. Might be able to bash through. Oh no! He bounced the Banelings even closer to the spines. The Queens are holding the line, but Serral eats a few. The Banelings zoning out the Zerglings. And uThermal really doesn't have that many units. He's got 3 racks, but he's only started pumping out Marines now. And the bunker does nothing to defend Serral's hatchery. The Banelings zoning out the Lings and helping to deal with the spines. The Stalkers taking advantage of that lack of range. And just the full-on all-in here. A simple yet effective-looking choice. uThermal, does he have stim? No, he's about to get combat shield, which may be the better choice in this scenario, but MaxPax is just going to micro the blink. They're not blink stalkers, but they don't need to be against limited Zerglings and unstimmed Marines. I fear there's not enough. We cannot get out. They are coming. A few stalkers will be badly bruised, but Serral and uThermal are looking absolutely broken. He'll shut the door in his face, but that won't hold him for long. 4 Marines is not even in the same zip code as enough. The Zerglings come in. The Banelings did their job. Lambo and MaxPax with another concerted attack in a well-executed execution. The one base all-in. I mentioned how strong the 2-player all-in can be. And I think maybe Team uThermal and Serral lulled into a bit of a false sense of security with all the full macro games we've had. A classic choice, but Lambo and MaxPax clearly deserving their 2v2 victory. What a set. Some of the... Jimmy! Sorry. I gotta gesticulate. Don't edit that out. What a set of games, though. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope you did as well. I hope it made your day just a little bit better. Make sure to check out uThermal, of course. I believe it was streamed, and I'm sure it'll have some videos on which channel. You can figure it out. Might even be recommended over there. But if you got the means of motivation, be awesome to check out Patreon, YouTube membership. But you're liking and subscribing. It's still free, at least for now. So thank you to our meal tier patrons, bringing in the extra minerals. Big Jig, Devin Door, Kate, Mario, Suit, and everyone. Glad you still enjoy. Jimmy picked out this video just for you. Check it out. And otherwise, I'll see you next time. Good luck. Have fun. Thank you for watching. Stay chill.